been great. We got a lot of good players, and which means a lot of competition, and that's what we preach every day. So we're just continuing to build depth, and I think we're having really good competition. Obviously everything kind of revolves and goes around Ashton, and he's going to have a great season for us. We're confident of that. Trying to figure out who's that next guy at defensive end. I think between Rodney and Raheem and Vic, those guys are all competing. At tackle right now, it's been Ramon coming out of the spring. But when we really get where we need to be, I think Jermaine's starting to progress and do more every day. And he's certainly got a ton of talent. I think Jared Dawson, those are two big body, explosive guys that, they were a little bit slowed coming into camp, but doing more and more every day, so confident. And then that will allow, to be honest with you, Ramon to do some other things, kind of be a guy that helps us in different areas. And I think, Jeff Clark's come in and done a good job. So we're really got 4 guys at that tackle spot that knows. Again, Dez coming back, doing good. Tawfiq has been a little bit slowed with an ankle, but he'll be back any day. And then I think Salah's continuing to build on what he did in spring. And then I think our deepest position is Leo. Mm-hmm. I think Stevens picked up where he's left off, really good leader. Cam Wilson has emerged. I tell you, he's a talent. He's very athletic. He's very twitchy. He's had a great camp so far. Popeye's been steady. And it's going to be hard to keep AJ off the field. He for a guy that's 230 pounds and he's done what we ask, he's put more weight on, but he doesn't play like a 230 pounder on a line of scrimmage. He's got long arms. He's just a natural football player. He's got excellent instincts, and I just think that throughout the season he'll continue to get better and better. So I'm excited.
You just mentioned a ton of guys.
Yeah, I know.
What is your, and Jeff has talked a little bit about, and Ron talked a little bit about, even in the secondary and in line of how you rotate guys. There's no perfect number, obviously, but how do you look at it? What do you want to build?
Well, and I lean on, John and Malik, my two right, I guess my right and my left hand guys. That's something we'll talk about as we come out of camp over the weekend. In a perfect game, a game of 80 plays, let's say, how many's Ashton going to get, right? Like, I don't want Ashton to play 70 out of 80 plays. Mm-hmm. That means he's probably not going to be at his best in the fourth quarter. But we've got to be intentional in how we rotate. The one guy I failed to mention before I asked that is Mason Riger. Mm-hmm. Mason coming off the surgery. He's been out there. He's been progressing. We got to be smart with him. And when you talk about a lot of guys, I think we've got at least 2, maybe 3 guys that can help us in multiple spots. Ramon, I think we got obviously Mason. Okay, those are 2 guys, and then who am I forgetting? Those 2 guys specifically can help us if we go bigger packages with 5 D linemen, 6 D linemen. Those guys can move around and do different things. So, but playing all those guys, it's not the same, right? Yeah. So just because you earn the right to play, everybody's not going to play the same, right? And so our first team guys are certainly going to get more reps than our second team if we're equal, let's say at a couple spots. We're going to be a little bit more balanced there, but there's no perfect answer. Like I say, at the end of in crunch time, you want your best guys on the field. And that's what's going to happen.
How comfortable would you say this group is, especially some of the returning players, with this new 4-2-5 scheme?
I think they're getting more and more comfortable. They 3-man front, moving all the time. We're not going to quite do that. We are going to move some. It's a little bit different. We're a single gap control team up front. We talk about being very, very aggressive. We don't want to play sideways. We want to knock people back. And I think our guys are buying into that. We're gonna do some different techniques, I think, than what they've done in the past. Will allow our guys to cut it loose, play physical, and but we preach technique, obviously, like most D lines do, right? You got to play with good technique, and but we're going to be very, very aggressive up front, and I think they like that. They like the 4 down. So we just got to figure out where all the pieces fit.
With Ashton, when you saw the tape before spring, when you watched, what did you see from him, and is there anything that surprised you once you now have been through spring and now into fall camp?
No, I just saw a very, very explosive guy that's physical, can run, very athletic. He reached out to me back in December before I'd watched the lick of tape, and when I see a guy that's, high 60s, low 70s, going into a 4-down look, I kind of initially thought this guy might be our 3 technique, and he certainly could do that. I mean, he is a tough, fast, physical football player. But I think what we've allowed him to do is spend more time on the edge, and then in certain situations we can move him around. Mm-hmm. If there's matchup, if we want to put him on a guy that we think is a weak link, we're going to be able to move him around and do those types of things. So he's a guy that can do it all. And like I say, we're going to feed off of his energy. We're going to feed off of his physicality. And our guys are, like I say, I think collectively so far in camp are doing a really, really good job of that.
Mark, you mentioned Jermaine obviously hasn't played a full season in a few years, but how have you just seen him kind of progress and maybe not, get nervous about injuries and those type of things?
Well, I think our medical people, our trainers, our medical staff have been intentional, right? When he had a little bit of a setback in the spring, it wasn't nearly what the prior 2 injuries have been. So as we got him through and into the late part of the spring and into the summer, I just think we've been very intentional about our path. I think we've hit all those check marks so far, and now we're starting to ease him back in. It first started with just individual type stuff out on the field, and now we've progressed to team things. And really a guy like that's played a lot of football. I just told him, you've just got to communicate with me, But so far so good. It's been steady progress. We're a different team, when he's out there. He and Jared Dawson, I just think, are 2 guys that are big, strong, 300-pound guys that are very, very explosive. Those type of guys are hard to handle. I don't care what offensive line you're at. I mean, those 2 guys. And then I think with Jeff Clark and Ramon, those guys can certainly factor in there and will factor in there as long as Jared and Jermaine are staying healthy. I think those are guys that we can move around in some of our sub packages where we maybe got a 50 lineman out there or down the goal line, maybe 6 guys. So it's nice to have that flexibility and those options. But I say so far so good. So far so good with Jermaine. He's coming along, and we're excited about where he's at right now.
Brom and Ron English have talked a lot this offseason saying that they want this defense to be aggressive. Are you seeing that aggression and disruption out of the D-line in this ballgame?
Yeah, I mean, and when we're not, we'll go back and we'll watch it, and I think these guys will attest that that's what we preach. When you talk about what you want to be, right, like for us up front, we want to be very aggressive, so we talk about attacking, right? And then I think to be a good to above average to great D-line, you've got to be physical. I don't care, where you're at. And then we want to be relentless in how we play. Well, we talk about those things. Those got to show up on tape, right? Not just at the start of camp when everybody's raring to go, and it's got to show up in the middle of camp, the late part of camp, when things start to grind. So we talk about, just putting that on video and stacking days, day after day after day. And what's great with that competition that we have, if a guy doesn't want to do it, these guys will tell you, right? We'll put the next guy in. And like I say, as a coach, you love that competition, right? And so I think these guys are feeding off of each other. I think they all get along well. They play well together. And we're just, we just got to stay on that path, right? We're not going to get out ahead of ourselves. We're solely focused on one thing, and that's being ready on September 1st for Georgia Tech.
Mark, you mentioned Cam, and what have you seen with him? And when he's been out there some in the past, he seems to make plays. What do you see with him with where you have him now?
Well, you said it. He's making plays. He's playing fast. All right, he's twitchy. He can rush the quarterback. I think he's a matchup problem. People would think, well, as a 230, 35-pound guy, he's not big enough to set the edge. Well, yeah, as long as you play with good technique, you play with your hands, you play with leverage, and then you add to that your athletic ability, right? You're gonna get offensive lines that are maybe a little bit nervous because of what he can do, right? He might beat me around the edge, he might up and under me. So there's a little bit of fear that a guy like that can put in the offensive line, and that's what I want our guys to do. But to me, he and I had a conversation coming out of spring. He had dropped some weight in the spring, and all of our guys want to play, right? So it all gets back to, well, here's what you need to do, right? If you want to put yourself in a position to compete for playing time, these are the things that you need to focus on going into the summer. And to his credit, he came back. He had put weight back on. He's holding his weight. And but he knows, right? Like, he's got guys, between Stephen Herron and Popeye and AJ, he's got to bring it every day. And to his credit, he's done that so far. So excited about the camp that he's had. And you know, like I say, he's just another bullet for us to use. I think we got a lot of bullets.